Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to SJMMA. Damn, it felt good to say that, but chaps, it's a card builder. You guys seem to like the card builder, so I thought, what better way to come back than with the UFC 312 card builder? We know it's in February, we know it's in Australia, let's build the card. Let's not mess about too much. As you can see on your screen, the main event, which is being heavily rumoured anyway and will probably be announced before the end of sort of November, maybe early December-ish, is the rematch. Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland for the middleweight title. I am seeing some people say that this isn't warranted on Strickland's end. I mean, the next deserving middleweight contender is probably Imavov, and Strickland's beat Imavov relatively recently, so this is definitely going to happen. The first fight was brilliant, it was close. Let's see it again. I believe I said it in the lead up to their first fight, but Sean Strickland is very good if he's chasing somebody. He's a brilliant bull, he's not a very good matador. If somebody meets him in the middle, that's when he starts to have some problems. I mean, I thought he beat Jared Cannonier, but regardless of whether you thought he did or he didn't, it kind of does help to prove my point. If you meet Strickland in the middle, it takes away a lot of his weapons, which is his pressure. He's a fantastic bull, he's not a great matador, and there's no way Dricus will take a step back if he doesn't need to. So, I think the finishing ability of Dricus and the offensive grappling of Dricus means he'll probably win another close, maybe even another split decision against Sean Strickland, I think. But don't hold me to that, it's a close fight. Above all else, in that first fight, I was banking on Strickland's cardio to eventually kind of wear out Dricus, but after he had that nose surgery, and it's kind of reopened his breathing again, so to speak, he's proved cardio is not really a problem for him, so with that out the window, I'm more confident picking Dricus this time. Co-main event, 5 rounds at featherweight, I'm saying Alexander Volkanovski against Diego Lopez. Now, lots to talk about with this one. The first thing is I think Volkanovski probably does have to fight on this card. It would have been 12 months since Ilya knocked him out. That's plenty of time. It's his biggest break for a long period of time, and I think he's done well to take it. I know he kind of says he has to fight for his mental health, but the fact he's taken a bit of time off, I think would definitely help him, not just here, but in the rest of his career, because he is getting on a bit now. He does seem to be under the impression that the UFC are going to give him the winner of Max and Ilya here at UFC 312. There are 2 reasons why I don't think that happens. Number 1, as much as Volkanovski's legacy at featherweight is excellent, he's lost 3 of his last 4. I know 2 were at lightweight, but back-to-back KO losses, I want to see him fight a contender for a change. And the other thing is, if you think about it, if Ilya wins, he would have beaten Max and Alex in a calendar year. I don't think he particularly wants to or needs us to turn around as early as February. And Max, if he beats Gaethje and then Ilya in a calendar year, plus, obviously, he fought twice last year as well. Again, they're probably going to look about May or June to come back at the earliest. And I don't think there's a problem with that. Does Volkanovski need a win over somebody like Diego Lopez to warrant a title shot? No, he doesn't. His legacy at featherweight is already concrete. He's already beat Max 3 times. If Max wins the belt, this fight becomes a lot less likely, because they'll just put him straight in. But I like it either way, do you know what I mean? What Diego Lopez has done since entering the UFC is mental, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I know he's lost against Movzar, but it was his UFC debut, he stepped in on short notice, and he arguably beat him anyway. So he deserves this opportunity 100%. And I can guarantee you 100%, he's not the type who'll go, oh, I don't want to fight in Australia, oh, I don't want a 5-rounder. If the UFC offered him UFC 312 in February against Alexander Volkanovski over 5 rounds, he'd take it in about 4 seconds. Guaranteed. I think the problem that Lopez is going to have is the cardio of Alexander Volkanovski, because Diego Lopez, even in 3-round fights, he does have a tendency to slow down. You can't do that with Volkanovski, but the flip side of that is if Lopez can start quickly and start landing on Volkanovski, has that chin deteriorated to a point where Diego Lopez can knock him out? Because realistically, getting chinned at lightweight and by a head kick, fine. Ilya Tapiri is a massive power puncher, okay. If Lopez knocks you out, Lopez is not a soft puncher, but he's not a power puncher. If he gets chinned by Lopez, he's got a real problem. I would definitely lean towards Volkanovski though. He's more experienced, he's more proven at the top level, and I think in a 5-rounder, I think you probably wear Lopez down. Probably decision, maybe even a late stoppage, I don't know. But Lopez would come in as a slight underdog, and it wouldn't be a bad bet based on what we've seen from Volk. So that's what I think should co-main UFC 312. Next up, in the feature bout at welterweight, I give you Jack Della Maddalena versus Sean Brady. Now, again, quite a bit to get through with this one, so we're going to rattle through it a bit quicker than Volkanovski Lopez. I very nearly put Leon Edwards against Jack Della Maddalena. I also very nearly put Kamaru Usman against Jack Della Maddalena. There are 2 reasons why I did. 1, I don't feel like either of them would take that fight. I mean, Usman can say what he wants on his little fucking podcast with the little mouthy Henry Cejudo. He's not going to go to Australia and fight JDM in February, I don't think. Leon, I don't think will either. Plus, I want this to be kind of a showcase of JDM. If he fights a big name like Leon or Usman, the narrative will be around them and not him. I want him to lead the narrative in this fight, and I think he does if he fights Brady in Australia. He's coming back from that arm infection after he knackered the arm itself against Gilbert Burns in Miami at the start of the year, so I think he's had enough time by next February. I think he's probably training quite hard at the moment. If he gets in camp at the start of December, he'll be fine for February. And Brady just beat Burns as well, so number 4 against number 5, I think it kind of works. These two were already supposed to fight. I think it was 2023, I believe it was, and it was that weird situation with a couple of pullouts. He ended up fighting Basil Hafez in the end, which was not ideal, but Brady's proven that he's willing to take a fight with Jack Della Maddalena, and it would be technically a move forward in the rankings for Brady and a move down for JDM, but 4 and 5, they'd probably be the best win on each of those records, I think. Maybe Burns is a better win, but either way, I would make this one. The winner goes on to great things. The loser has to defend their ranking against a rising contender like a Michael Morales, for an example. So, yeah, I think this is the kind of fight you make as kind of like an eliminator for an eliminator, if you get what I mean. As much as Sean Brady has improved over the last sort of 12-18 months, I would definitely still lean quite heavily towards Jack Della Maddalena. Because if you're getting TKO'd by Bilal Muhammad, I don't think I can make you a favourite in a fight against a guy with the level of power of Jack Della Maddalena. He is made of stone, and he punches like he's made out of bloody stone, I'll tell you that for free. So, I think JDM would knock him out. But I think you probably say Brady deserves a top 5 opponent. Well, he's in the top 5 himself, so of course he does. And I think if he can beat a resurgent Sean Brady, that puts Jack Della Maddalena in great stead for the next kind of 12 months ahead of him. So, yeah, I like this one a lot. Next up, on what I think is a pretty stacked card so far, I hope you agree, I'm going to make Dan Hooker versus Renato Moicano. Now, I know what you're thinking, I'm going to get into it, don't you worry about that, my friends. If I'm Renato Moicano, the fight with Paddy Pimblett has been so spoken about over the last kind of 12 months that it will kind of probably happen at some point anyway. You'd probably call Moicano a veteran in the UFC, but he's not actually that old. He's younger than Hooker, I believe. So, with the fact that I think it's quite common knowledge that Pimblett will not become UFC lightweight champion, he might, but he probably won't. They're probably going to be hanging around the same area of the rankings pretty much for the next year or two. So that fight will always be on the table, but off the strength of his recent performances, he deserves a step up in the rankings, 100%. You could flip that on its head and say, why would Dan Hooker, who's now ranked in the top 5, fight somebody outside the top 10? Well, he lost 4 out of 5 not that long ago. And the UFC kind of niced him with the matchmaking. In the middle of those losses, he got Nasrat Haqparast, who's decent but not brilliant. And then he got a fight against Puelles, who's quite shite, to be honest. He beat Jalen Turner, which was very impressive. And he did very well against Gamrot. He surprised me. But I think Dan Hooker at 5 is probably a bit high. And I definitely think that Moicano at 11 is low. I think he's 11. So I think if I was making the rankings, I'd probably have Hooker at about 7 or 8. And I'd probably have Moicano at about 9. So I know there's a bit of a discrepancy there. But in terms of where they are in the division, I think they're pretty much at the same spot. And it's a fun fight as well. But the most important thing for Dan Hooker, get him away from Conor McGregor talk. I don't like Michael Chandler, beautiful people. I think he's a tool. But we've seen him waste 2 years of his career chasing Conor. Now, Hooker's been aware of that. And he's been handling the early talk quite well. But the last thing he wants us to do is get sucked in. Maybe a date is thrown around. Maybe something's even announced. And then all of a sudden he doesn't fight for 18 months because he's focused on Conor. Get him in the octagon as soon as possible. Down under against Renato Moicano. That's what I would do, personally. You remember I said I'm going to get back into Paddy Pimblett later in this piece? Well, here we go. The winner of Dan Hooker against Renato Moicano fights Justin Gaethje on pay-per-view in a 5-round co-main or feature bout. The loser fights Paddy Pimblett. Perfect, right? Moicano against Gaethje is interesting. Hooker against Gaethje would be a fucking firefight. We already know there's things there between Pimblett and Moicano. And Dan Hooker wouldn't mind fighting Paddy Pimblett. He'd probably fancy himself. I'd fancy him to beat Paddy, to be honest. But that's what I think you should do. Winner fights Gaethje, loser fights Pimblett. Done. Easy work. Oh, okay. Anyone who knows me, I mean, he's literally the cover of me fucking YouTube page. I love Taito Ibasa. I really do. But he's lost 5 in a row. If he loses again, he might get cut. So, again, just put him on an Australian card against an unranked heavyweight. I was going to give him Mick Parkin. I think that could be quite interesting. But I'm going to give him the Salsa Boy instead. Why not? Let's just see what happens. Do you know what I mean? It's bloody difficult being a Tuivasa fan. He starts in the UFC really well, he gets battered by JDS, goes on a loss streak, takes time off, comes back, blasts everybody out there, knocks people out, elbows Derek Lewis, knocks down Cyril Gane. If he wins that fight, he fights John Jones, by the way. Hasn't won since. So, yeah. It has to start somewhere. If he's going to climb back up, it's got to start somewhere. And I think if he loses to Cortez Acosta, because he's on so much money being a top heavyweight, he'll get cut. But, I mean, as much as Cortez Acosta did use his grappling to beat Despain, I think I probably got better takedown defense than fucking Rebellis Despain, to be honest. But, yeah. I think you'll probably mainly strike with him. And as much as I think Ty's takedown defense is not brilliant, it's better than Despain's. So, if it's a striking match, Tuivasa beats him quite easily. He's quicker, he's more powerful, his leg kicks are brilliant, he's got good Muay Thai, underrated Muay Thai actually. But if he loses again, I've said it already, but if he loses again, he's probably out of the UFC. And if he is out of the UFC, the PFL will probably sign him and he'll probably fight Francis Ngannou and get more money. So I don't want to see him fight Ngannou actually, he'd probably kill him. But, yeah. Tai Tuivasa, Waldo Cortez Acosta, I'm kind of coping. I don't like this entry because I have to remember that Tai hasn't won for fucking years and it pisses me off. But, anyway, Tai Tuivasa, Waldo Cortez Acosta to open up the main card of UFC 312. There you have it. The featured prelim of a UFC pay-per-view is a very, very important spot. It's the last chance the promotion are going to get to show you a fight that makes you think, yeah, I'll pay to watch the rest of this. It doesn't need to have massive name value, doesn't need to be hometown heroes, just needs to be a good fight. And these two plums would put on a good fight. Ikram Aliskerov, Joe Pyfer. Absolutely, sign me up. Obviously, as we know, Ikram, short notice against Robert Whittaker didn't go well for him. Joe Pyfer's kind of fringe rankings, maybe just a step below that. He'd probably be the best win on Ikram's resume so far, I think. So yeah, make it happen. They've both got power in their hands. Ikram's a fantastic grappler. He's better on the ground than Joe Pyfer. So, I see either an early submission or an early knockout. Either way. Well, if it's a submission, it'll be Ikram. If it's a knockout, it could be either way. So, let's just see what happens. And it's definitely one of those fights that may get a casual fan who just tuned in on, what is it now? Fox? Not Fox. It's not fucking 2014. ESPN. Is it ESPN? I think so. I'm British, I don't really care. But, either way, it's definitely one of those who will get some extra buys in, I think. Alright, next up, Jake Matthews against Gunnar Nelson. Now, Nelson had that massive long break in the middle of his fucking career for some reason. I think he was injured and then he just didn't come back for a while. I don't know the ins and outs, but he's not fought for a while again. Jake Matthews is probably about where he should be, and I think they kind of need each other, because obviously Jake's Australian, it works on this card. And even though he's been in the UFC for quite a long time, he's not had many standout, name-valued wins. Gunnar Nelson may be his best win at welterweight, definitely, if he can beat him. Which I think he probably would, to be honest, but there's a bit of name value. It's a good clash of styles. You've got striker versus grappler. I like that in fights. So I'm going to say Jake Matthews against Gunnar Nelson is a good welterweight scrap for the 312 prelims. Next up, Astro Boy Steve Erceg against Charles Johnson. Now, obviously Steve Erceg had that massive jump out of kind of nowhere to fight Pantoja. Did okay, actually, and went into his fight with Kara France's favourite, at least in my eyes. Got chinned, so he does need to step back down to reality a little bit. And Charles Johnson's put some wins together recently, so I don't mind it. As much as the big stars make the UFC, it's the people like Charles Johnson who keeps them going. He's active, he seems to be getting better and better, even though he's not young by any means. He did well against Makayev, don't forget. Erceg's had a weird career in the UFC. He's rose to the top so quickly, but I think if he can get a surging flyweight like Charles Johnson's name on his record, he can start looking forward. If he can beat Johnson, I don't mind him against maybe a Taylor. That could work, 100%. But yeah, Steve Erceg, Charles Energy Johnson, UFC 312 prelims. I like it. Let's move on. And opening up the prelims, Edmund Shabazian against Jacob Malkoun. Now, Shabazian was kind of the young, I think he was a teenager at the time. He was obviously in the same camp as Ronda Rousey in Glendale. Things have gone a bit shitty for him. Everybody found out that he can do some spinning shit on the feet, but he can't grapple. He's basically Kevin Holland, but a bit worse. So, yeah, that's kind of where he is. I think he's lost 4 of his last 6 and like 5 of his last 8, something like that. Malkoun's been okay in the UFC. He's kind of a middle-of-the-road middleweight, so to speak. But he's Australian. He trains with Robert Whittaker, I believe. Or at least he used to. He definitely used to. I'm not sure if he still does now. Should have done my research. Can't be bothered. Anyway, yeah, I think Shabazian's on a bit of a slippery slope. If he keeps losing, he'll be out of the UFC. Malkoun, I think he's 4-1 in his last 5, something like that. He's done okay, to be fair. and Shabazian will be the biggest win on his record if he can beat him, which, I don't know, I think Shabazian could be a bit slick for him, but I think Malkoun is one of the more physically strong middleweights, and Shabazian is quite skinny and weak. So we'll see how that plays out. But Emin Shabazian, Jacob Malkoun to open the prelims of UFC 312. That's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to finish off with 3 early prelims for you lovely people. The first one being at heavyweight, Junior Tafa versus Jamal Pokes. Now, how can I put this quite nicely? Junior Tafa is a one-trick pony. The trick quite good. He's got heavy hands, but yeah. Jamal Pokes is okay. And I say that with stress because he's probably not okay. He's probably just a bit below okay. But he's probably UFC level. Because of his power, I think Junior Tafa is as well. Tafa's Australian. There could be a knockout. I think that's all I can really say, to be honest. Next up at flyweight, women's flyweight, there is a female fight on the card. Don't worry, ladies. There's none fucking watching. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to do Casey O'Neill against Montana De La Rosa because there was a time where Casey O'Neill looked like she was maybe a win away from a title shot, simply because Valentina was dominating 125, and if she'd beat Jennifer Maia, she may have got a title shot. She didn't beat Jennifer Maia. She got hit by about 7 million right hands in 15 minutes. How? I don't know. Since then, she's been kind of alright, sort of bumbling around. I wanted to give her a ranked opponent. I think all of them around her are matched up. So I was looking down, I was thinking, I just gave her De La Rosa because she's lost a few, but most of her losses are against decent names. She's beat Ariana Lipski, which is a decent win, and she did okay against Tatiana Suarez. I know that Suarez was fighting up a weight class, but she did decently well. She's a decent women's flyweight. I think O'Neill will beat her quite soundly, but I wanted to get her on this card for her Australian heritage, and I thought this was the best option, so that's why it's here. And to kick us off, it's Australia versus Australia at featherweight. Josh Kalibau against Jack Jenkins. Now, Kalibau did okay when he first got into the UFC, but it's kind of gone a bit downhill since then. I think he's on a 3-fight skid. And Jack Jenkins has just beat Herbert Burns, which is kind of a free win because he's a bit shite. But it's fun. I mean, they probably are at similar levels. I'd definitely make Josh Kalibau favourite. I think the guys he's fought, even though he's lost to most of them recently, are better opponents than what Jenkins has ever fought or beat. In terms of the way this fight will probably go out, I expect Jenkins to probably be looking for takedowns. He'll definitely be the more offensive grappler because in the striking, I think Kalibau is a lot more fluid. He puts his shots together a lot more frequently and fluidly than Jack Jenkins. And I think if Jenkins is going to beat Josh, probably needs to get his hands on him. If he doesn't, he probably gets pinged for 15 minutes. But there we go. Josh Kalibau, Jack Jenkins at featherweight to open the card. Done. Right then, people, from the top, on the main card, the middleweight title rematch, Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland. 5 rounds, Volkanovski, Lopez. JDM, Sean Brady, maybe Leon or Usman. Hooker Moicano, Tuivasa, Salsa Boy. And on to the prelims, Aliskerov against Pfeiffer, Matthews against Nelson, Erceg against Johnson, and Shabazian against Malkoun. And then Tafa against Pogues, O'Neill against Montana De La Rosa, and Josh Kalibau against Jack Jenkins. What do you think about that? Do let me know in the comments. I think it's a very well balanced card. There's star power, there's name value, but it's not 2 stacks. I think it could definitely be doable and sustainable for the UFC to make this card. And if they do, I want some commission. Do you know what I mean? That will just about wrap us up, I think, beautiful people. If you enjoyed the video, that's fantastic. Let me know in the comments. If you've watched all the way through, you're a trooper, and I love you to bits. If you've got any future ideas on card builders or any kind of sort of matchmaking videos, I think that's probably what I'm best at and enjoy doing the most. But I'll mix it up, you know. I'll be doing some prediction videos for 2025 as it's coming in hot. But with that being said, take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm back. And I'm staying this time, and I mean it. And if I don't, I'll oil up Dana and record it. Anyway, see ya.